Good evening. I'm Enari Darklor and welcome to Churikua. Tonight, in the following compilation, we will listen to the stories based on the legends of Duke Street, Botan Doro or the Peony Lantern, the First Ghost, and the Screaming Tunnel, followed by musical intermissions between episodes. Enjoy and sweet dreams. Barely I remember when this street had its original name, Los Guadalajareños Street. Many men from abundant fortunes were gathering in a house where gambling was a masterpiece. Neither you had a great fortune nor certain reputation weren't allowed to come in. It was heard that great games of cards and gambling were known and some more dangerous were played, those known as the trick. Don Ernesto was a gambling man, so he usually attended that place. We saw him on his road to the place, greeting us, and without knowing more, we became witnesses of how many men lost their assets and fortunes, turning into beggars wearing elegant clothes. He was considered a lucky man. He had been gambling a lot, and one day his luck changed. A handsome but mysterious man who was not from here. His clothing looked opulent and expensive. I remember seeing him on the street, walking luxuriously and asking where that house was and coming in there. As I knew a little time later, due to an acquaintance who used to work there, Don Ernesto looked very interested and started a game with a stranger. With the course of time, just Don Ernesto and the stranger are still in the game. They played plenty of games, one after another, until Don Ernesto finished without any other thing except the clothes he was wearing, starting to regret, and on the edge of weeping, he asked one more game to recover some of his assets. Then the stranger saw his despair and said, I see you have lost all you have, and you still want to play? What could a man who has lost all his fortune, wealth, and assets bet? Something might be. After thinking a little, the stranger did him an offer, whispering on his ear. Don Ernesto just answered, No, please, have mercy on me. So then there is no deal. So is not there anything else you can offer? After thinking a little, and with a trembling voice, he accepted. The game advanced with the pass of cards and hands until the stranger made his final game, beating Don Ernesto, screaming in despair, My beloved wife! In that moment, the unbelievable took place. The stranger exuded heat and a sickening and rotting odor, claiming being the devil himself. He dragged Don Ernesto out of the place. Little is known about Don Ernesto, yet that night he vanished, and no one else neither knew nor saw him again. Some of us wonder if he took his own life, others that he went to the private areas of the city to beg and die, and other people who claimed that the devil took him with him a little time later. The beating house was closed days after Don Ernesto's disappearance. Not to mention that after that many employees from it refused to attend, telling the devil was surrounding the place. Years passed, and few people claimed to see a shadow, a hooded man, desperately knocking at the door that formerly was the betting house, asking for one more game. I did not believe it until I dared to see it by myself. I went through that street, and once after sunset, I saw a hooded man passing through that street, knocking at the door from what was the betting house before. I came closer and certainly scared, but my curiosity was bigger. At the time of touching him, it dispelled as haste. My name is Josuke. The story I will tell you happened just some years ago. Ogiwara Shinoyo, my neighbor, who was a samurai, was very kind and quiet. But over the years, he saw me as a friend, something that filled me with joy. I met Ogiwara a long time ago. He arrived to live here as soon as he got married. Unfortunately, his wife got seriously ill and died. Then, he didn't do anything else except focusing on his profession, and I used to invite him home and see he was fine. During that time, he was dumb to his destiny, until one night, during Obon, he saw a beautiful young lady with a woman who was her companion's lady. Oiwara got closer to her and talked a little about joining the walk. After a while, he invited her to his home. In the following days, I saw Iwara very joyful and even thought smiling, something that hadn't happened since his wife's death. Suddenly, his beloved Tsuyu was coming in and staying the whole night there with him. She was very beautiful. His skin was pale as the moon, and his clothing reflected that she was from a good family. Due to its bizarre nature, I was glad of him until one day, at dawn, I heard a noise and I went to his home. I couldn't avoid seeing through the window and how he was kissing his love. But looking at there with detail, I realized he was kissing a skeleton whose bony sockets were shining, and with its clothing damaged. Would you mind my surprise, making me go for the priest of the temple? The priest gave me some talismans and told me you should place them at the door, so that spirit won't be welcome. to come in, and your friend will be safe. I took advantage of the fact that Ogiwara wasn't at home and pasted the talisman as the priest asked me to. When he arrived, he saw me very surprised and amused, so I told him what I saw. Completely confused and thoughtful, he didn't know what to say, so just told me thank you and seriously disappointed came home. The following days, grief was consuming him from the inside. But even this happened, they continued coming. They were speaking to him, calling his name, but he didn't welcome them to come in. And of course, they couldn't do it. They appeared as soon as the sunset came, crying out and begging him to come out. That she loved him and wanted to know the reason for his contempt. The fortnight, I was with him, sharing some tea. He was crying when he listened to her, begging him and crying out, I love you with my whole being, but I'm sorry that we cannot be together. Why, darling? The nights we shared together hadn't been the light from the lantern in the dark of the night for you? That is my love. I haven't found that light that no one else has given to me. I felt like walking in darkness without a path, and now I have found it thanks to you. I can see the path of love. Please, don't make this more difficult. Splitting out is not the solution. The red thread of fate has put us together for a certain reason. Please go. You would never be welcome to come in this house, I told him. Darling, all this time I had been at your house, at your home, and now I'm not welcome. What if you visit my home instead? Let him alone! Darling, visit my home. If, after being there tonight, you are still with the idea of not seeing me again, I will understand it. But if not, at least give me the pleasure of having this very last night with you on your side. After this, Ogiwara stood up and told me, sorry, my friend. Thanks for everything. But I can't because this sorrow was consuming me. I had been living with desire to be with me since she left this world behind. That was about my wife, and now that I have found someone else to love, I prefer enjoying that happiness that even my great achievements in my profession hadn't made me so joyful. I will go, my dear friend. Forgive me for not following your advice. Once said this, he opened the door and left. I stayed stunned. So to see how they went through the darkness of night. A whole day passed and he didn't go back. Then another samurai appeared. He was looking for Ogiwara, who had something important to do in his profession. I knew he was a man of his word and wouldn't be able to neglect his job. So I told him the truth of what happened that night, and we went to see a priest. On the road, he asked me for the name of his beloved. Utsuyu, I said. He became amazed, taking into account that some years ago, to the other side of the city, they went to attend an emergency. He had met a young lady, asking for Ogiwara, but when he told him that he was married, she got sad. Little while later, she became ill and died. Also, he knew where her remains were. We went to see the priest of the temple and told him what happened. We went to her tomb and opened it. How big was our surprise when we saw two bodies in the tomb, Otsuyu's and Ogiwara's. He was smiling happily and in the arms of his love forever and ever. So much time ago, the gods blessed us with good weather and peace. Nevertheless, there are people that due to their will aren't being blessed enough. In a house not so far away from here, the people who rented it didn't stay so much living there. It is said that a man in discomposition and bad appearance was hung in chains. Every time they saw that sunset, which might be in the underworld, it didn't allow them to enjoy their home, neither being able to sleep nor eat. They started to get tired and ill. Then, until they decided to leave the house. Believe it or not, the gods sent us to Athenodorus. Athenia gave her the welcoming to our city as a wisdom man and a scholar in philosophy, so that property and started asking, why does a property like this, so wide and deep, have such a low price to be rented? This is because the owner considered a low price rent to be rented in little time. Why is it in bad conditions? It was due to the owner having money issues and hasn't been able to fix it, and so he took that into account to decide to rent it at a low price. Their questions were asked. In a short time, the owner came and officially rented the property. Although the owner warned him that there was an entity that didn't belong to this world and that appeared there. Despite this, Athenodorus continued renting the house. He started carrying his assets, looking for people in order to help him to organize all the requirements he needed, such as moving the bed, dispose of splits, a flare, and light. That night, while he was working productively, he heard a noise of chains. Athenodorus, despite the noise, continued writing. The noise continued increasing, and he raised his sight and saw the spectre. On his bones, with his body decomposing, making a gesture to follow him, yet Athenodorus asking him to wait a little. The noise continued increasing and became very disgusting to the point that Athenodorus saw him again, and after insisting once again to follow him, he took his light and did it. The spectre was walking slowly with his chains jiggling on every step, announcing his march. Once in the yard, and in the full moonlight, shining and covering with mist, the spectre stopped and dismissed as haste. Athenodorus thoughtfully, and after looking around the place, took some plants and leaves from the garden and settled them on the point where the spectre dismissed. Once this was done, he decided to continue with his work, although the spectre insistence and his sudden disappearance made him thought about if his abode wasn't the underworld, and he stayed in that house insisting on following him. It should be something else that was causing this, something that maybe with the necessity and help of authorities can be solved. He decided to go, and of course this in the following day, he asked to dig in his yard, and just to the point where the spectre disappeared. Surprisingly for all, his remains were found. Remains of a man who was decomposing and with chains and shackles on his body. Seemed to have spent a great amount of time there. It was strange and confusing at the same time. How couldn't this spectre be allowed to go to the underworld? His improvised grave without the necessary ceremony made this poor man couldn't enjoy of the benefit of a voyage on the Styx. After the discovery, his identity was investigated and proceeded to make the funerary ceremony required, and carried his remains to a more appropriate ending. Since then, neither Athenodorus nor any other tenant from that house heard or saw James from that spectre again. He was able to go to the land where he belongs, the underworld. I cry for my pain, my pity, and for my life that is not life any longer. I remember when all was happiness at my dad's farm. He spoke a few words but worked hard. My mom loved him and we were very happy. Everything started when I was expecting my little brother. After he was born, Mom let him sleep in his cradle while Mom went to milk the cow. I went to see him. I did, but he didn't move, was cold, and went to tell Mom that my brother wasn't well. Mom ran out, and he was now in heaven. That was weird, more quiet than usual. Mom felt bad because my brother wasn't with us anymore, and that blamed her and blamed me too. He thought I did something to him. Dad was happy because he would have a son. He will help me in the farm when he becomes older, he said, but then he couldn't help anymore. He wasn't alive. Mom barely prepared a meal. I was starving, pretty starving. Suddenly, the worst thing happened. Dad hit on Mom. He said that he listened to voices inside his head, telling him that it was all her fault. She did it. I cried when I heard that Mom was incapable of doing that. I was playing in the yard when I saw how the house started burning out. The whole farm. I saw Mom lying down, her eyes looked at none. She didn't move. Dad cried her up and let it inside the house, burning. When he saw me, he said, "It's your fault." I felt afraid of his eyes. They were dark, and he was very angry. His face had a very ugly face. I felt like he was a hunter, and I was a prey. I started running. I ran and ran as far as I could. I hid among the trees, bushes, running away again when I heard him coming closer. I was very close to the tunnel. Beyond the tunnel, I knew very well the place. I would have places where I could hide, and I could actually ask for help. In the tunnel entrance, while I was running with all my strength, I felt a hard beat on my back. Pain overtook me. I was hot. I fell down. I couldn't get up. That got something out from my back, and it hurt me a lot. I couldn't avoid screaming and crying because of the pain. I asked him why he was doing that, and I told him that if I had done something wrong, I felt sorry about it. He kicked me on the face and in the stomach. I just heard him grunting and told him, "Shut up!" He kicked me on the mouth, grabbed one of my legs, and dragged me inside the tunnel. Took a little bottle with something inside it and poured it above me. It hurt a lot. It burned. He paused and said, "All this is you and your mother's fault." Later, he lit a match and threw it over me. I felt too hot and in pain. I screamed. I cried out with all my strength, but I just could think on pain and fear of what was happening to me. I couldn't resist, and I surrendered. When I woke up, I was in the tunnel. I don't know what happened. I see shadows passing through the tunnel. I'm scared. I cannot go out from here. I had asked them for help and they start running out from here. Sometimes they get so close to me and that scares me a lot. Sometimes I just want to cry. I miss my mom. I would like to be with her once again.